Subtlety in marketing, Japan's response to online gambling promotion.
Thank you for that. At least you got away from doing my last name as well. So hello today. Thanks for having me here for the Sigma team. I'm very happy to be here from Japan. My name is Joji Kokuryo. So there's the answer to that quiz question. And today I'm here to talk about the Japan market. Now, people who know me, I'm from the land-based side originally. So I've worked in Macau, I've worked in Singapore, Philippines as well. And I've been back in Japan for about 8 years working on the integrated resorts projects within the country. So today I hope that I can bring kind of a unique perspective to the digital or the online market side, where it's not just how you're getting into the market, but what's actually happening on the ground, what's happening in terms of crackdowns. 2 years ago, no one wants to hear what I had to say because they had great sales in Japan. Now they want to know because their on real money gaming revenues are dropping like flies. So again, just trying to bring some information here. And hopefully if you're very sly, if you're very cunning in terms of how you operate in Japan, which is not my business, you'll be able to fill in some of the gaps. Some of the great operators are already doing so. So for them, it might be something that's not so new. Just to start off, I think, let's learn a little bit about the Japan market. There are forms of legal gambling, or as we call it, legal betting. So in Japan, actually, gambling, the vocabulary itself, is all illegal. Horse racing, all of these, national government forms of gaming or gambling, as we call it, we call them legalized betting. So legal betting exists in Japan. All of these have online platforms done by amazing local partners, local companies. And they also do have international partners, which some people may have been working with here. Of course, we'll have casinos with around 20-30 or so, and that's something that's run by the national government. And then we also have pachinko, pachislot, which I won't touch because that's another completely different topic, which is categorized as amusement gaming. But again, very important in terms of content, in terms of players that are playing on the online space in the country. So yeah, just to kind of get off, get the elephant out of the room. Online gambling is illegal in Japan. You can tell that the country is a gray market when you need the leader of the country to say something that's illegal is in fact illegal. And that's what happened in 2022 when, during a diet session, which is a government session in Japan, the topic of online casinos came up. And the Prime Minister did say, that they'll have to do something about it. So this is 2022, 3 years ago, to the day almost, actually. So there's some timely kind of data that came out in March and also May. In terms of online casino play, so these are slot games, card games, or whatnot, there was a survey done by the National Police Agency, and they came up with estimates that are similar to previous studies. The key point being roughly about 3+ million people have played online betting real money. There's roughly about 2 million who currently still play, although that may have gone down in the past 3 months since the study was released or the results were released. And of course, we don't have the data of what kind of expenses are made, so we don't have GGR data, but we do know that roughly based on the study that about 1.2 trillion yen is spent on online casinos. So that's about 8.2 billion USD. Which I think at this moment, people who are in this industry should be saying this seems quite small, and I'll get to that. The very funny thing about this study, so one of the questions was, did you know that gambling on online casinos is illegal? And 43% of the respondents, probably it's actually higher because some people, even in an anonymous study, don't want to answer truthfully in Japan. They said that they didn't know. This is informative for that fact, but there's some underlying marketing points in here. I'm not going to put up the study. I won't put up the details, but I'll give you an example. This is a public study, so you can find it online. Of these 43%, the number one reason why people thought online casinos weren't illegal was because there's already tons of forms of gambling in Japan. The aforementioned types of gambling, you have pachinko, which is basically a form of gambling. And the other kind of issue was that the second thing was they see advertisements in well-known streaming sites, on well-known social medias, they're seeing influencers that are popular. And when I say influencers, not just influencers, I'm talking about celebrities, athletes that are doing the commercials for these types of contents. What this actually says is that's what the online community was doing very well, is blending into this kind of gambling culture, but also making sure that they had their advertisements, their promotions shown in kind of a real market. So if you look at this study, it's like a free case study of the market, very interesting, and you should all take a look. It's all in Japanese, so if you get it translated. So going back to why that previous number seemed so small, in May, there was a separate entity of Council for Sports Ecosystem Promotion, again, one of those long Japanese groups. But this association actually is very affluent. It's a group of IT, tech, systems, sports, even like sports, like athlete wear, all those types of companies that come together to form some kind of database of the industry. They estimated that on top or with overlap, again, the categorization is not very clear, but they estimated that 5.4 trillion yen, which is about almost 4 to 5 times of what was said for the online casinos, is used on sports betting in the country. Kind of an interesting point here is that Japan, actually, the sports lottery run by the Ministry of Education does have a similar sports betting kind of product. It's called Toto Winner. You can see it on your phone. And you can bet on Japanese League football. You can bet on Japanese League basketball. The very interesting point of the data that they've found out for the people betting online on international providers, they found out that baseball, Japanese League baseball, was the #1 product that was being bet on. And without giving the detailed numbers, it was almost double of what #2 was. So again, getting to the main topic for today. So what's going on in terms of the crackdown at the moment? I won't get into all of them because some of them are quite obvious, but I'll get into 2 key points. The instigators, I put this in quotes because this is really a direct translation of what's being discussed within the national government and the police agencies, and facilitators, just services that facilitate these kinds of operations. So again, I won't go over the main list, but operators, of course, no one is operating an online casino with their servers in Japan these days. If you are, then you probably wouldn't be here. So again, I'm not going to mention the operation part. But, and excuse that there's some translation issues, but there's no arrests made. You can replace the word arrest with charged, actually. One of the key crackdowns since that 2022 comment by the Prime Minister is the crackdown on influencers and also people who basically are admitting that they're playing online platforms in Japan. So the first main one was in 2023 when a YouTuber who was, streaming himself playing online and gambling for real. Yeah, that's kind of like, not the smartest thing to do. And he was charged and eventually, I believe, fined a hefty amount of 10K Japanese yen, which is probably like $750 US. So again, that's kind of another part of the problem that we can talk about down the line. 2024, the first kind of influencer who was receiving referral payments for bringing players through links on their YouTube page was charged. And actually, this was the one that really set waves within the industry in terms of, wow, they're taking this seriously, because they had never really even looked. And when I say they, I'm talking about the police agency of Japan, have never really looked that far into it. She wasn't playing, but she was promoting. And this will kind of lead to some of the legal changes happening in Japan. However, I think in terms of revenue, so if you're an operator, if you're an affiliate, I think everyone cares about the actual revenue. The biggest stain, and this really started this year, is when they started what I would like to call a witch hunt of very famous celebrities, athletes who have basically played online within the past 5 years. And this is really the key trend. These days, if you type in the word online casino in Japanese in any search engine, the first 10 things you'll see is an affluent baseball player from Tokyo Giants, was charged and he's now, suspended from the team. There's famous celebrities who've lost their TV show and they weren't even charged yet. They just admitted to playing about 8 or 9 years ago. And just kind of add on to that, statute of limitations on gambling crimes in Japan is 5 years. So he wasn't even charged with anything, but he lost a lot of his contracts. Lots of companies, especially ones involved in gaming, in terms of video games, in terms of internet finance, for example, they're undergoing compliance training on what kind of gambling is okay, what not to do. I've been lucky enough to do some of these. It is quite interesting just to see how prevalent gambling is in the country. So again, there's a lot of this kind of media witch hunt, social stigma that's going up. As I said, I'm from the land-based industry. That's not something I want to see in the media. It kind of hurts when you're trying to lobby for 2 more licenses for integrated resorts in the country, when online casinos is front page news in terms of who is being on the crackdowns. The key point being, though, and as I mentioned before, it's all on the player's side. We've had the cases of the influencers, the referral influencers, but again, it's all on the player's side. In terms of what's actually changing with the law, nothing's actually changed yet. There was a anti-gambling addiction law passed in 2019, which was the same time about when they passed the IR, Integrated Resorts Law, for the land-based casinos. In the next diet session, which is actually happening very soon, they plan to add 2 more items to that law. One of them being that they want to make it illegal to not only promote, but also to guide players, or I should say users, to become players on these registered sites. The second point, it's not really worth saying because it's always been illegal to have an operation in Japan. But the third thing is, again, they're trying very hard to raise awareness. The easiest example for that, I saw the SEO topic before. One of the funniest things right now is, unless you do your branding very well, you're going to have a national police search result that says, online gambling is illegal in Japan, that just pops up second or third result, unless you do your SEO keywords very smartly. So again, I think some of the operators have done that quite well already with knowledge of their brand name, for example. So again, of course, there's marketing challenges. I'll kind of speed through this, but advertisements, as I said, you're no longer able to be on the main streaming sites. I think DAZN was a very famous one that used to always have online casino advertisements. For the free version, which may or may not, I won't really say, but will lead to their real money version. So what are the trends that we're seeing? I mean, programmatic ads, the ads that we see that are based on what the person is searching. This is like basics of marketing online. There's no real way to block it unless you're talking directly to the people who are releasing the ads on site. So if your server is abroad, at this point, there's not much issue. If I'm looking at ESPN from my phone in Japan, I still get the online casino site advertisements popping up. But if I'm looking at Yahoo News in Japanese, it used to pop up. These days, unless you're using a VPN, they do try to kind of crack down on keywords in terms of that. So the main kind of advertisement platforms, you do see a decrease on the number of advertisements that are popping up. For influencers, as I mentioned before, if you're doing it from Japan, it's quite risky. You can, of course, do an anonymous account and just be doing that. But if you're doing referral business, it would be very smart probably to not be in the country. And so some of the trends that we're seeing is, not just that they're not in Japan, but the keywords that they're using are no longer words like online casino or online sports betting. They're using brand names. They're using specific things like, specific vocabulary, like features or, people that would know. And I think that's where a lot of the people that are still succeeding in Japan probably are doing this part very well in terms of reaching players through social media, through digital medias and streaming services. Affiliate sites, again, no one's been doing this directly from Japan, I would hope. So these are still tried and true. You have the basic things. But one thing that's becoming more important is how they're transferring the funds. And this is where, there's, of course, loopholes with cryptocurrency, there's loopholes with foreign banks. And the way the police are finding people is actually right now through credit card transfer data. So that's actually how they're finding these celebrities, these athletes, and kind of charging them. Of course, social gaming at the moment, if you're in the social space, I mean, it's separate from the online real money gaming. So again, the opportunities there are quite similar, but in terms of how you're rewarding your players, that might change depending on the level of what you're doing. But again, a kind of a separate topic in terms of the situation in the market. So just keywords before we finish up. Site blocking, very sensitive in Japan. It's our legal right to information. The only thing that's blocked in Japan at the moment is adult content that implies minors. So again, it is very serious, and it's something that the country won't do very easily. Locking up fund transferring. I mentioned cryptocurrencies as a loophole being used, but a lot of the exchanges in Japan are sending the users emails saying, you have to be careful about what you're transferring funds with using the exchanges in Japan, or we have the right to freeze that transaction. And I have a GMO coin account, for example, and that's happening. And then in terms of regulation, sports betting, online casinos, two different topics going at very different vectors. But I would say that very, very roughly to end, that sports betting is probably closer than the online casino movement at the current time. So that kind of just wraps up a rough outline of what's going on. And yeah, thank you very much for the time. And if you're going to visit Japan, please do, but don't gamble while you're there. So.
Thank you so, so much. What an incredibly informative keynote. Just for anyone that's